The cost of travel is rising, so the prices go up in China. And of course, the good old topic, visa. So we are still making a lot of problems for the Chinese people to come and visit us in different countries in different ways. So what will happen next year, this year, 2011? So we see there is obviously, looking at the numbers we have until now, further increase, a further quantitative growth. But we can also see that there's a qualitative development. So outbound tourism has been getting more and more support by the Chinese government. So it was something which was rather something where the government tried to stop and to slow down the development. Since 2 years, the government embraced this as a positive thing. Even now, they have a negative balance in foreign exchanges. Still, the government is supporting outbound tourism. It's getting easier on the Chinese side to get passports, to get hard currency, to get credit cards, which are recognized internationally. And for some countries also, they make it easier to get visa, Japan, for instance. And just recently, as you, I'm sure, are aware of, we saw finally the start of the liberalization for international tour operators in the Chinese outbound market. So only 2 weeks ago, it was announced that the JTB, American Express, and TUI of Germany are allowed finally to start organizing outbound tours from China. So on Monday, I have a meeting with the boss of TUI China, and his emails sound now much more positive than they did for the last 5 or 6 years when he was sitting around twiddling his thumbs waiting for the license to come. And also a good news for many people is that the Chinese market, and we will talk about this in a minute, as it is segmenting, is getting more and more interested in new destinations, in new forms of travel. So if you're not Sydney, if you don't have an Eiffel Tower, still there is a market for you developing now, which was not so much the case before. So why are the Chinese tourists traveling? And the answer, I would say, you can put in one word, which is investment. So traveling overseas is an investment. It's an investment in personal prestige. So if you want to be somebody in China, you have to have a nice house, a big car, son in university, and international travel experience. So social capital, this is simply, you have to be been traveling to Sydney, because when you talk to your friends in the clubhouse of your golf club and they talk about Sydney or Brisbane for that matter, you have to be able to talk with them to say something. If not, you're sitting in the corner, and so this is not good. And this is not because the people are vain, but this is because in China, as you know, connections are everything, and the rule of law is not always working very well. So you have to show that you're a big guy, that you have muscles, so nobody can mess with you. Learning. So we said traditionally traveling has been connected to learning, and of course it's still interesting for the Chinese to go overseas to meet their customers. I'm sure everybody in this room has something made in China on your body or in your bags or something. And of course, business opportunities. So when you look at California, lots of Chinese tourists have been or travelers have been going there, doing some leisure, and on the side buying 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 houses, which are so cheap now in the United States. So when I go on holidays and I check my emails from my institute, my wife will say, "Can't you stop working for once? Come on, get off that business mode. You're on holidays." Most Chinese people tell me, well, there's no point. I'm one person 24 hours a day. Why should I stop thinking about business opportunities only now that I'm on holidays? And of course, the last point, soft power. So the Chinese government has also understood that to show the world, especially the developing countries, especially Africa, Latin America and so on, how rich you can be if you are following the Chinese development model. So that is also showing the world, hey, we can afford that. So if you saw Li Na winning the first tennis Grand Tour title, you could see the Chinese supporters waving, of course, Chinese flags. So she was winning for China. She was showing the world how good China is, not necessarily this lady, but China. So that's another important thing, and you see the government is issuing all these little leaflets telling travelers, if you go outside, you are an ambassador of China. So you should behave in public, and you should always show the positive face of China. And as you can see, if you have enough travel experience, you get the good girl. So from a European perspective, I'm based in Europe, we can see no Chinese traveler goes to Europe for holidays. Europe is too far away, it's too expensive, the food is too bad. So everything you want for holidays, you can have in China, or you can have in the surrounding area. So you have wonderful beaches here, you have wonderful beaches in Southeast Asia. So no point for that. So we can see that there is a negative correlation between the distance from what I would call the Chinese world, the world where you have a lot of overseas Chinese people, where you get decent Chinese food, where you meet people who can speak Chinese, who know your culture, who can treat you in a proper way. So the further you go away from that, less important becomes war, less important becomes having fun, and more important become all the other things, investing in your prestige, looking for business opportunities, and so on. And I think, well, you're all here more expert on Australia than I am, so I don't dare to say a lot about Australia. But I think Australia is in a good position because, on the one hand, obviously this already is a Western country, an exotic place from a Chinese point of view. But you're still close enough to the Chinese world. You still have a lot of overseas Chinese people. I'm sure the Chinese food here is better than the Chinese food I get in Germany. So, and also, of course, from a mental map, Australia is not so far away from China compared to, let's say, Europe or American countries. So that's the first part. Talking about segmentation, and I will be quicker with this part, don't worry. So first thing we see, whatever we're talking about here, this is a new market, this is a newly developing market. The majority of Chinese outbound tourists, when they go out of China today, this would be the first time. So when you compare the three quinquenniums, 5-year periods, you see that more than 60% went out within the last 5 years. So the majority are beginners. And so, of course, they begin from going to Hong Kong or Macau or Taiwan, and then they move on going to surrounding areas and then to further away. But this process started already 15 years ago. So we see there's a process of segmentation. So you have, for the upper middle class people, you have mass tourism, but we see a lot of self-organized tours, or what is called in China now semi-FIT. So where you have the tour operator organizing the visa and the air transport and maybe accommodation, but all the other stuff is organized by the travelers themselves. Which means they don't have a tour guide, they don't have a fixed plan, which means it's much easier for you to influence where they're going, where they're shopping, what they're doing, how long they're staying at your place. So there's a much bigger chance than before to catch this market if you have good offers for them. So we call this the new Chinese tourists, people who are experienced, they're not traveling for the first time, maybe they have been a student overseas, they're interested in what they're seeing. They go beyond just taking a photo and running away to the next thing. Most of them are ecologically interested, green, and most of them are below the age of 45. So this is a segment, and this, I think, is a segment where all of us can, in the tourism industry, can actually start to make money from the Chinese outbound tourism, which until now has been rather difficult. So why is this new Chinese tourist emerging? So it's a new market, but we have like 15 years experience. So 1997 was the first time that officially the Chinese government acknowledged that there are people who are traveling outside of China just for fun, not for business or for research or for sports or whatever. So you have this learning process. I am an international tourist, has been going on for 50 years for a lot of people. And for instance, we have more than 1.5 million Chinese students who have been studying overseas, and most of them went back to China. So these are people who have a much deeper understanding of Western culture. They can appreciate what they are seeing much better, and they probably, most of them, have less problems with languages. And of course, money. So just a few days ago, we got the latest figures that now there's 1.1 million households in China having $1 million in cash or stocks, so not real estate. This is an increase by a cool 67% in 1 year. So to put this into perspective, in Germany we have 400,000 households which have this privilege. So it is in absolute figures, of course, it's still just 2 out of 1,000 people in China, but in relative, but in absolute figures, it's a lot. And again, the average age of a millionaire in China is 36 years. The average age in Europe is 55 years. So these are younger people, people who earn their own money. They didn't inherit it. So they are always still busy and still short of time, but well, interested to spend a lot of money. So, looking at time, I will be very short on this part. So it's no surprise for you when I tell you that social media is the #1 thing if you want to reach the Chinese market. And I just put up an example from our partners, Dragon Trail in Beijing. They did a very successful campaign for Banff National Park, a place in Canada, where they only through social media marketing and only through offering 2 free trips to Banff, they got almost 100,000 registered users with a real name, real email, real phone number. Just by spreading the word, there's a free trip to Canada available. So this is an example of what happened in Kaixin, which is similar to Facebook, only better and bigger than Facebook. And so this is a guy who in the end won the prize, so he could go to Canada and he would blog all the time about what he was experiencing there. So, last part, sophistication. So, how to catch the new Chinese tourist and what will happen in the next 5 years. So, obviously you have to develop new products. So, you get a bigger piece, or maybe first time a piece of this nice, yummy Chinese cake. So as we have been saying, there's a segmentation. So the mass market is still raced to the bottom. So it's still very low price, very bad quality, even lower price, quality even worse. So retailers are happy. Even the people who go for the lowest, for the cheapest package, they still spend a lot of money in shopping. But for all the other things, for food, for accommodation, for transport, they spend as little as possible. Nobody is happy with them.